Hey guys, it's Alex. Thank you for tuning in to another YouTube video. Hope you guys been great. In this video, I'm going to be talking about cars that I considered purchasing other than my Audi Ttrs. There was a lot of cars on the list until I learned about the Ttrs, did my research on it, completely bought me in, ended up purchasing one and going through the whole process a week later. I'm not going to get too into the buying process of this car, but I'm going to talk about the reasons why a lot of the vehicles were on my list as an option. But that being said, let's get started with the video. Alright guys, so I came and stopped at my favorite viewpoint and just wanted to let you guys know that there's a lot coming for the exterior of this car. Stock, it looks good already, but I want something a little bit more aggressive. Alright guys, so to start off the list, when I decided it was time to buy a new car and I wanted to start searching through the market, the car that I had in mind was the BMW 440i. Very good car. I've never driven one, but I can tell you right now from everybody that I've known that has a car like this, there's nothing to complain about it. I mean, that V58 engine is very reliable. That inline six single turbo, you can't go wrong with it. If you want a car that will be fairly quick with just bolt-ons, or not even just bolt-ons in general, just a downpipe and a tune, any car with the V58 is an amazing choice. I also had the M240i in mind, and both of these cars I wanted to get them all-wheel drive. I was looking purely for a car for the drag strip. I like going to the drag strip and going to all these events. That being said, the BMW M4 was on my list as well. I do like the M3, but I'm more of a coupe guy. After owning a sedan for like a year, which was BMW 335i with the F30 chassis. There's nothing to complain about that car either. Very, very great cars. I just wanted to upgrade it to something all-wheel drive. That car was rear-wheel drive. So I decided to look further into other cars that either have a good all-wheel drive system, or if they're rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, whatever it is, they were good at hooking off the line. That being said, I started looking into Audis. I considered the new Supra since it's very light. So after that, I decided to look further and kind of expand my options and create a list, you know, and see what car would fit me better. Keep in mind, I wanted something that I can daily drive, and also it can be fast and reliable. By fast, I mean, I'm not the type of person to think that just because a car has a lot of horsepower makes it fast, you know. I mean, this car around 550 horsepower beat Hellcats before, you know. Horsepower isn't everything, and that's one thing I considered as well. I wanted a car that was light. I wanted a car like the Toyota Supra, which was the option that like I was going to get. Like, I was gonna get a Supra, and the Supra I'm talking about is the new 2020 Supra at the time. That also has a V58 engine as the BMW 440i and M240i, any 40i car has, you know. So I decided to do a lot of research on these Supras and see if it would be crazy expensive, or the car would be unreliable as a 10-second car, or maybe a 9-second car, or just north of 600 horsepower maybe. After doing all my research, I seen that there was Pure 800, Pure Turbos. They offered a hybrid turbo for the Toyota Supra, and you can make very good power with just that hybrid turbo. And as well as Big Boost, they had a stage 4 kit, I believe, for the Supra, and that was an option as well for the car. But what didn't let me go towards that car and kind of keep looking for other cars was the fact that it was rear-wheel drive. Even though it has a limited slip differential and a good transmission, that ZF8 transmission is a very good transmission, even if it's not a dual clutch. Speaking of dual clutch, I wanted a car with a dual clutch, and the only car out of the cars that I mentioned right now that has a dual clutch was the BMW M4. But the M4 didn't do it for me as well, since it's rear-wheel drive, and I didn't want to deal with crank up issues. I mean, if you know about that S55 engine in the M3 and the M4, it's and even the M2 competition, that wasn't really a thing that I wanted to deal with. It's not an expensive thing to fix, but it's just something I didn't want to deal with. I wanted to, if I was gonna pay money to fix something like that, I'd rather put that money into another car that doesn't have that issue for mods. You know what I mean? Bolt-ons, bigger turbo, whatever it may be. I've started seeing a lot of M4s around and everything, M3s, and it's just like, I wanted to be more unique, you know? I wanted to have something that nobody really has. So I started looking into other cars. I mean, I've never seen, in town where I live, me personally, I've never seen an M2 competition. So that's a car that I considered purchasing as well. And I mean, that's a car that honestly I would still purchase even if it has the S55 with the crank up. I mean, those cars just look very beautiful. I like M4s and M3s, how aggressive they look, but just how the M2 looks, I don't think there's ever been a BMW that looks that aggressive or that has that body shape in that way and the front end like that. I mean, very, very beautiful car. That car will always be an option in the future to purchase if I want a rear-wheel drive vehicle and with an inline six and a lot of torque. But yeah, the M2 competition is a great car, but it just wasn't for me. So I decided to step away from BMW and maybe look at other German brands. And I started looking into Audi, and then I started looking into Porsche as well. So I started looking into the newer Porsche Boxers and Caymans, and they all had 4-cylinder turbocharged engines. And me personally, I'm not a fan of 4-cylinder turbocharged engines. So that just kind of, you know, I just wrote that off the list. And then I decided to just go fully into Audi. I mean, they have an amazing all-wheel drive system. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna look into Audis. I wasn't really a fan of Audis other than the R8. I mean, you can never go wrong with an R8, but that was way out of my budget at the time. So I decided to look into Audis, and I was considering an Audi S5. But then, as I thought, I wanted a light car, something maybe around Toyota Supra's curb weight. So started looking into more Audis and all that, and started watching videos of the Supra going against the RS3, and watching a lot of videos of even the M2 competition going against the RS3. The RS3s would put up a good fight. If not, like, they would win the race, whether it was a drag race or a race on the roll. And I liked how they looked. The RS3s look great, all-wheel drive system, everything, the dual clutch, it was all there. But the only thing that wasn't there was that it was 4-door, it was a sedan. So I was like, oh man. I started looking into the RS3s and seeing if there's such thing as like a coupe, you know, a coupe RS3, and there isn't. But what came up was that there was TTRSs, and they had the same engine. I started doing research on the TTRS, and that's what brought me into the TTRS. But you can't go wrong with the RS3. I mean, very great cars as well. The only major difference is just like the weight and the body shape, you know, what kind of car it is. But very great cars, you cannot go wrong. So I also looked into other car brands like Mercedes, AMGs, but right away that wasn't what I wanted. You know, those cars aren't for me. Those cars are very heavy. I don't really like heavy cars. I like something that doesn't feel like a boat, you know. It feels very good around corners. If you drive a car like a Hellcat and then you drive a car like the Toyota Supra, same power, doesn't matter, you will feel the difference in the car way better around corners. It's just common physics. The lighter the car, the less weight the powertrain has to pull, so therefore the car's faster. A lot of people still don't understand that. They just focus on horsepower. I decided to go with the TTRS. It had everything I wanted, and here we are. Stage 2, 93 octane, Unitronic tuned, bolt-ons. It's been great. It's treated me well, and I think I will be keeping this car for a couple years at least. But these are some honorable mentions, or cars that like I really liked, but maybe it was too out of my budget or something, or they weren't out at the time. The M340i was out at the time, but it was like new like the Toyota Supra, but it was too much, and also the car wasn't very light. I also was very interested in the new M440i, but given the looks of it and the weight as well, wasn't a car for me. A car that I'm very, very interested in to this day is the new G80 M3 and M4. Those cars, I'll tell you right now, they're gonna be rockets. Those engines are already some monsters of an engine. I mean, they already have them in the X4Ms, X3Ms that are already out. A lot of people have pushed those cars to their limits with just a tune and all that. And I mean, those cars are heavy. They're SUVs, you know. So I can only imagine something lighter like an M4 with that engine, same setup, everything as these X4, X3Ms, drag racing, even in the Euro track. I could only imagine what they would do in times. Very interested in those cars, even though they do have that enormous grille. To be honest, I didn't like it, the car at first. I was like, no, they ruined it. But over time, and it wasn't just a concept car, it started growing into me, you know. So that is a car in the future that I will purchase no matter what. Probably not in the near future, but definitely before the next generation. All right, guys, so I think I'm gonna leave off the video right there. I hope this video helped you guys, maybe give you guys some information, or maybe if you're purchasing or thinking about purchasing a car in the same class as the Ttrs or other cars that I mentioned. I hope all goes well and you have taken in some knowledge, or maybe my opinion has helped in a way. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys' support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.